Yeah. Yes. Welcome to Last Call Reacts, the channel, everything around it, man. Like, share, subscribe, if you will. Let's get this thing off the ground. Now, I like to get a few things out of the way when I do this. With social media, I'm not 100% on it all the time, but there are some nagging ones that kind of stick around, and you start to form an opinion on certain things. This week, I'm talking about the, so-called Diddy documentary and everything. And full disclosure to you guys, man. So you don't think my judgment is clouded or anything like that. I'm going to tell you as uninformed as I am with it. I didn't see the documentary. I don't plan to see the documentary. It's kind of like R. Kelly and some of the others that come out. Don't really need to see it. Not that I need to be persuaded about one thing or another. I kind of have my thoughts about it. I just don't need to dig in the trash to find more trash, and this is kind of what I feel like this is here. You got to go and think like, all right, this is a petty thing because is this the new quote unquote hit 'em up? Is this the new no Vaseline? The way that moguls are going to hit moguls or whatever back and forth with each other? But regardless of how you want to, get at your ops like that, how you want to send messages, there's a lot of criticism around there that I kind of want to get into. I don't even want to make this long. I just need to acknowledge it because it's up in my feed, like I'm sure it is with a lot of you guys to comment and the news going back and forth and people talking about different episodes and people coming out watching the episodes like, I can't believe it. How could he? I didn't know. How could you not know about things? This is the bottom line of this. This is entertainment. And the fact and the thinking that anything is new under the sun that has to do about this is also ridiculous. The only thing back in the day with old Hollywood and music execs and all this sort of stuff, they hid it well. There wasn't many rooms for or pathways for exposure or anybody to get redemption, or anybody to get a revenge or even just justice on things that happened to them in the music industry. So me going into this, and from my point of view, I'm not sure if there's a lot of people like me. I'm sure there's a few, but growing up and being around the same age, a little younger than these cats, not the same age, but they were around. And you have obviously dudes like that and crews like that talking about like 50 and Puffy and all these guys. You got guys in the crew kind of like that, right? You hang with a close couple. There's some people that you kind of tolerate with because they're getting you into parties. Maybe they got the car for the weekend, or somehow they just got connections. So they're all right. You kind of keep them around, and you trust them at an arm's length. They know that was a lot of the criticism that Puffy got back in the day. Remember Craig Mack, Mace? A lot of these guys didn't have good things to say about his character. Now, a couple things going into this that I'm not sure could really be disputed. There's a lot of things in this case about being in the right time in the right place and having being a nepo baby and having the proper resources that people don't have. That's how sometimes these people emerge to the top. And you got to admit, another part of that is talent in a way. Now, I wasn't a big dude on the bad boy camp. I like Biggie because he was hip hop, but I didn't like the way Bad Boy was making everything R&B and glittery and shiny and lazy rapping like no. Blah, blah, blah. I hated that shit when him and Mace came out. It just wasn't my thing because I was a hip hop head. And if it wasn't some Bronx shit, some old school boom bap, or even when the guys would try to bring it into the 90s, still using the boom bap, it wasn't getting that play. I still listened to it. And then I listened to, I was on that West Coast stuff, I lived in both places, actually. I don't like to give too much of my whereabouts and all that, but I'm very familiar with the culture, one at a very young age and one at a little bit of an older age. All right. But that's neither here nor there. What I see with Puffy is like a dude that would be in the crew. It didn't even have to matter about the money and stuff. They would just be flashy. They didn't necessarily have the charisma. They didn't necessarily have the talent that other people in the crew had. But what they did, they shine on certain things. Music people give Puffy credit as a producer. Like he knows how to make something sound better. He knows how to rearrange some music so that it's more marketable. Not even necessarily better for the ears and stuff, so that it's marketable. All right. It just went out of, wearing the leather suits and this, even though that was back in the 80s, this was a little bit different. So that mafioso, champagne drinking, blah, 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 just a lifestyle that I thought was not cool. You know, I didn't like where hip hop was going at the time with that. But people say, in terms of a producer and making things happen and resources, this is a guy that you want around or you want to rub shoulders with, elbows with, whatever. I fuck up that saying all the time. So him being in the mix, but this is a guy who his reward was the fame. Some people want to be rich and famous. Some people just want to be rich. Some people actually just want the fame. They want to be known and they want that influence and power. And I think that's the kind of guy, I haven't seen the documentary, but, through comedians and some of the other podcasts that you watch, they let you know what's going on with that. And first, with everything, especially with the exposure of social media, how can we be we see the worst of people displayed in 4K and in 30-second clips out there. But I think for a lot of people, this is an inside look to something that they maybe want to be a part of, or maybe they just like the sleuth. They just want the soap opera. It's a modern day soap opera. Instead of sitting down watching Days of Our Lives or Young and the Restless and stuff, you gotta, after the OJ trial, you're able to flick on and see how somebody's living their day to day, all the in and outs and stuff like that. So I as much as I might sound like I'm bashing the music and all of that, from other people, even Nipsey Hussle and people who wouldn't necessarily fuck with him like that, give him credit saying, well, he knows what to do in the studio. And the only thing I would say is questionable in the integral way of making music versus what sounds good, what feels good. He goes for what's going to sell, what the most popular thing is going to be, which I guess, is his job and was his job at the time that he's doing that. But things that you can't ignore are the things around like Biggie's funeral, where, all right, he said the money came out of his earnings and stuff. I'm not sure where it's supposed to come from after that. Be nice if he went out of being this millionaire out of his pocket, gave the family whatever we're doing. But we see that all the legacies of anybody in Bad Boy just ends up shitty. And that's the shameful thing about this whole thing. And like I said, there's a couple things noteworthy in this, not even necessarily about the documentary, but more about the situation around this, that this power, this fame, this notoriety, these finances can't be made into something more productive other than airing out dirty laundry between each other, ourselves. There's a part of the interview, this is Good Morning America, and there's something about that too. Apparently, he did Good Morning America because in the prison where Puffy's at, they get like two stations. One of them for sure is ABC. It's the reason why he suited up and doing that interview with Robin there. But again, this new age of back and forth might be scary, but we could see that all these things could produce why can't something more productive be produced from these powers, these entities? Now, 50's tapped his name onto this as the footage and all this stuff was basically already laid out. Now, what about a far stretch? We know 50 were doing this. What is it? BMF, the power, all that stuff, putting money. But he seems like he only wants to highlight certain things in the culture that make black people look bad or worse in a lot of other people's eyes. If you're doing documentaries, why not dive in the deep end? You got a good name. You're doing it. There's certain things that he says in this interview that the reason why he's doing this because nobody could really touch him, that he's the one to do it. It's a little bit petty. What about a documentary on really digging up hip hop? Something that's going to last way past yourself and your legacy. Do something real for the culture. Because in this interview, and I'm going to play a couple things as well, he attributes what he does to, he doesn't want the public to think that hip hop is like this. Excuse me? Have you that you need to stop half the so-called, I'm not even going to say hip hop because that's not hip hop, the bullshit that's coming out now, that narrates this type of shit. What about the other Curtis? Curtis Blow, go back. Put some names out. Put something if you're really interested in documenting stuff. Fucking attack Umar Johnson and people who are pimping the community, not even in the entertainment realm, but that's not going to bring as much notoriety, power, funk, stink, sleuth to the shit that you're doing. And it's just a shame that you appear to be more in that business than, anything with dignity and integrity with it. Let me play this.
With Sean Combs. So what brought you to this project?
Well,
was there anything that surprised you when you were watching the footage?
No, that didn't surprise me at all.
How did you go about getting the footage? And do you know the intent of the videographer? Why?
When you're a reality star, you're so used to being able, you have a camera around you all the time, but when you have that kind of power and everything, I'm going to edit this.
And do you think that hip hop culture was on trial as much as Sean Combs was?
Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as the hip hop is fine with this behavior.
Now, I'm not too sure about that. Hip hop might be fine with a lot of garbage and stuff, but I say this knowing damn well that some of y'all still play R. Kelly in your shit. But I don't think anybody is endorsing this sort of behavior, So my point is, if you're going to do something like this, why not really? Why not? This is the time where you should be getting like a film company or something like that really could help the image and education of people. Now, instead of doing that, things branch off. Instead of letting it be what it is, you have people like Marlon Wayans who needs another video on his own. I don't know what to think about this guy. Maybe he thinks his voice is more powerful than it really is, making a statement on everything and certain things that maybe might not need that he's got to do with that. And he has his own family situation that he's speaking up with. But when it comes to stuff like taking down these people, I almost feel as though people want to make this like a Black Epstein case versus this idiot that's he's not even likable. He's not even likable in pause. He's not like a great looking Hollywood guy with charisma that you want to see on your screen all the time, even though he fashions himself after that. He's a guy who wanted to wedge his way because he's living his dream to do all of that. So now the beef goes between him and Marlon Wayne. Marlon Wayne's him. Now other people start talking about that, branching away from the so-called issue that 50 Cent is bringing up in the first place. Then there's this.
And the moments in that footage where I feel like he was so preoccupied with what was actually happening in real life that he forgot that the cameras were there.
Because he was reaching out to people.
Absolutely.
He was reaching out to people saying, hey, I need some help here.
Yeah. And that's, I think when you hear about allegations in the news and when you hear about things that are going on, I think there was a lot of confusion, at that time as to what's real, what's not. And I think that, this is an opportunity for people to see what was really going on.
And I'm not sure who is this. My whole thing is, who is this marketed towards? Who needs to see the insides and this and that? And I guess if it's more entertainment stuff, like maybe back in the days, there's People magazine, a whole bunch. I'm just naming a couple. Even down to ever, if you're finding out what the stars are going through and what they're doing, it's sort of like a little peek into their lives that they're living, of people that you see on screen or that or famous people for that matter. But how messy does it have to get? I guess is the point. You need to see where this goes. And I think as people who consume some of this stuff, y'all should, if we shouldn't, demand more. Not to just treat your audience like pigs and say, here's some scraps. You guys live off of this devilish shit, so I'm going to feed your need for you. There you go. Low-hanging fruit material Forget about something that's going to stimulate your brain and stuff. There's still living legends out there. There's still people out there and situations. You get the Tulsa, the last lady, Queen Fletcher, Mother Fletcher passed away, the last surviving member from the Tulsa massacre. Man, that would have been a good, powerful story if it had the resources behind it too. Or even to get that town going. We're just moving, doing the wrong shit. Moguls are fighting over some bullshit. The only time Russell Simmons coming out of exile to tell the world that he's giving his daughter $50,000 a month. All right. But all this, I bet you wouldn't do a thing. You wouldn't do a documentary about Jimmy Iovine, though. You know? And it's just this cowardice making spotlight on stuff. And this is your energy. This is how petty you are. And you're allowed to do all this shit. But if you're saying it's for the people, what about what else for the people? Do I got a point? Am I worrying about the wrong things? Does anybody else worry about this kind of stuff? I wonder. Give me your 2 cents, your 250 cents in this as well. I don't know, just not with the clownery. You know, tell me what you're getting from the documentary if you're one of the people that are watching it. If it's good, bad, just good to know, just a little slice of entertainment. Should Curtis Jackson be doing a little bit more? Not saying he doesn't do anything for the community, and especially things that don't have to be publicized like that. But, you know, other ways, it starts looking like counterproductive. You send a message one way, but your huge actions show, you know, something a little more counterproductive that we don't need right now. But shit, man, let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe, get into it, leave me a comment, all that good stuff. Love to hear it. Thanks for checking me out, man. This is Last Call. Check out my lives and my other things too. Appreciate you. Hey.